Never trust the quiet one. Everybody thought it was going to be Take-Two and Rockstar with Grand Theft Auto 6 increasing prices up to $100. Hell, we had people that were praying for it. And don't worry, I'm sure we still have a good chance of that happening as well. Because, I mean, $70 to $100, that's a pretty big jump. But $80 to $100, I mean, that's not too bad, right? It was Nintendo, the one that nobody was talking about. During their announcement of the Nintendo Switch 2, showing off some things that people could genuinely get excited about, well, there was something that wasn't on the showcase, and that was price. And the minute that you went to their website, that was when they slid in the dagger of a $449 console and the overhead finisher of $80 digital video games. Nobody saw this coming. I didn't see this coming. I mean, we know that all these CEOs have been talking about increasing prices for like the last 5 years. Every single one of them has talked about it, but I never saw it coming from Nintendo, and people are pissed. Rightfully so. There are also people that are defending it. Don't worry, I have some things to say just to you. But the more that I think about it, the more it makes sense why it would be Nintendo and not anybody else. And it's for reasons that I don't think anybody's taking the time to actually consider. Lord knows it's not games media. They exposed themselves yet again with this one. Who would have guessed? But there are some unique circumstances that Nintendo is in or has been in for the last few years that would lead them down this route. And spoiler alert, it's not tariffs. I don't think this is going to end well. Economically, socially, we are in the lowest point of trust this industry has ever seen. And if Nintendo goes down this route, as well as any of these other publishers or studios, it's only going to end poorly. Simple as that. They are playing with fire in the middle of dry season, and they're risking everything going up in flames. But before that, your walls are looking pretty bare, and you could use today's sponsor, Displate. I probably shouldn't be touching this. Now I need to clean it. Now let me put you guys onto something that Displate fans really shouldn't miss out on, and that's the Displate Club. It's a membership that seriously allows you to level up your collection game. You get free shipping, early access to limited and ultra limited drops, and even the ability to customize and create your own displays. Plus, every 12 months, you get a voucher equal to your joining order's value, meaning that your membership basically just pays for itself. And whether you're into gaming, music, movie, TV, art, whatever it might be, something totally niche, Displate has you covered with over 2 million designs to choose from. They're printed on high-quality metal, and every Displate uses a magnet mounting system, so there's no tools, no wall damage, and you can swap them out at any time. I've used Displate for years now, and it's hands down the easiest way to make any space feel like your own. Now, I noticed that some people have been jealous of my Magic the Gathering mana symbol set from their Textra line, and just for you guys, the Textra line is on discount right now. If you're thinking about building out your collection or just wanting to pick up a cool poster, now is the time. Go to displate.com and use my code LEGENDARY at checkout to get the best deal, or use the link in the description below. Make your walls look legendary. Nintendo just dropped one of the biggest announcements that we've seen in years from either a publisher or a console maker. Their presentation was packed full of long-awaited titles and unexpected reveals, a brand new Donkey Kong game for the first time in over a decade, an open-world Mario Kart game called World Tour, and for reasons that defy logic, they casually just dropped Hollow Knight Silksong, a game that's joked about as the Half-Life 3 of the indie world as a side clip instead of a full trailer, but then came the biggest curveball at all, a standalone console-exclusive From Software game called Duskbloods. It's clear that Nintendo wants the Switch 2 to dominate right out of the gate, and with this lineup, plus the massive improvements to the original hardware, it's hard to imagine that it won't. I mean, according to Nvidia, the Switch 2 boasts 10 times the graphical power of the original. Nintendo claims that it can run games at 1080p, 120 frames per second, and it can dock at 4K. They've upgraded their controllers, they've added camera functionality, and finally, built-in voice chat. Am I the only one that found it hilarious that Nintendo, out of all companies, the king of copyright, patents, and lawsuits, basically just ripped off Discord's UI for their voice chat? Also, why are they talking about voice controls and voice chat like they just invented it? This isn't 2003. Every other console figured this out 2 decades ago. Still, the announcement hit hard. Fans were hyped. The Switch 2 launches in June, and on paper, it looked like a slam dunk. But during this hour-long showcase, something was off. Something was missing. Pricing. And the minute that people went to go and check Nintendo's website, the real announcement hit. $449 for the Switch 2, $80 for digital games, and $90 for physical. Now, I will add that there is some confusion on the physical games prices being higher. I can't fully confirm that, but it seems like retailers are just guessing at this point, so we're going to have to wait and see. But let that sink in, marinate in it for a second. Lord knows that I have, and I'm not happy. And looking at a lot of the discourse that I've seen online, not a lot of people are happy either. Nintendo didn't just raise prices, they broke the ceiling. And oh, by the way, those physical games that they're going to be selling, Not all of them are actually physical. With select titles, you're still going to need to download the game, meaning that you're just buying Nintendo's new DRM system called keycards. Congratulations, you're paying $90 for essentially anti-piracy. Oh, and it gets worse, of course, because while players were excited to revisit some of their old Switch games on better hardware, the fine print made it very clear only select Nintendo titles will be enhanced, meaning that you're going to have to pay for an upgrade fee, just so those snakes can unlock an already existing feature within these games' setting. Don't have the game? Want to play Zelda Breath of the Wild on your shiny new console? Well, that's going to be $70 for an 8-year-old Wii U game, which tells me that Nintendo is going the full PlayStation route here. No free upgrades, no patches, just repackage and resell. DLC or remastered, pick your poison. Either way, you're paying again or you're paying more. And by the way, if you weren't feeling bad already, those same price increases that we saw for their games are also on the Switch accessories. Hope you guys are excited to pay over $100 for a dock and charger. Dear God. The more you dig in, the uglier it gets. Nintendo is selling a glorified tech demo called the Switch 2 Tour, which is a standalone paid game. Who charges people to learn about the console that they purchased? And their biggest addition, by the way, that shiny new voice chat feature, is now going to be included on all of their controllers, and it's going to be locked behind Nintendo Online. You are literally going to have a paid-for button on your controller, which I'm going to take a wild guess and say if you accidentally hit it while you're playing a game, it's probably going to pause the game and redirect you to a subscription paywall. Look, I like Nintendo games, but let's not pretend like they belong in the price hike conversation. They have outperformed their competitors while making cheaper games. Most of their titles are nostalgia-fueled reskins. Pokemon, their biggest franchise, looks and runs worse than most mobile games do. And while they're flexing about 120 FPS on a handheld, forgive me for being skeptical. We've heard that before. Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 have claimed 60 FPS when they can barely hit 30. Hell, they've already showed off Cyberpunk 2077 and how it's only going to run at 40 FPS. They are constantly a step behind. Nintendo has suffered the least, profited the most, and now they're asking for more. Nah, not like this. So why? Why now? Why would Nintendo, out of all companies, want to make this move? Well, if you ask Games Media, it's definitely not about greed or timing, it's politics. Within hours of the presentation, half of the headlines were running talking about the newly announced US tariffs. Trump tariffs raised the prices, they cried, as if a single announcement explains a half a decade long conversation about price hikes. Never mind the fact that Capcom's CEO last year was talking about how games were underpriced. EA's CEO has floated the idea. Take-Two Strauss Zelnick has definitely been pushing for $100 games for years. Just a couple months ago, on this very channel, I covered multiple articles gushing over the hope that Grand Theft Auto 6 would push game prices to $100. But no, let's forget all of that. It's the tariffs, totally. Nothing to do with the ongoing conversation about the last 2 brutal years of failed live service projects, third and first party flops, and bloated development costs. Let's not mention that maybe, just maybe, these companies are scrambling to stay afloat and want to offload some of their costs onto the customer. I swear that half of these writers wanted to cover politics, but they settled for video games. For 2 straight days, Games Media ran with the headlines blaming tariffs for the price increase on both the Switch 2 hardware and its games. The only problem is none of that made any sense. You can't tariff digital goods, for one, and the actual tariff numbers weren't released or revealed until the day before the Nintendo Direct, and yet every major outlet insisted that the price hike was tariff-driven, only for Nintendo to later then go out and release a statement delaying pre-orders because of the tariffs. That means the original price of $449 was set before any tariff impact. So what actually happened? Well, the media lied for 48 hours and then got lucky when reality bailed them out. Yes, of course, tariffs are going to have some effect, but they're not the original cause, nor do they explain the price hike of $299 for the original Switch to $449 for the Switch 2. The more obvious explanation, Nintendo just wants to make more money. The Switch 2 was already one of the most profitable pieces of hardware in gaming history, outselling both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, and now they're looking to push that even further with the Switch 2. I mean, there are real cost increases across the board right now, yet not a single outlet mentioned it. Scarcity, material costs, chip shortages, all these things factor in. What they are conveniently forgetting is that when the original Switch launched, there was no competition in the handheld gaming space. Now, you have the Steam Deck, ROG Ally, Legion Go, and many more. Demand for handheld components has skyrocketed, and with it, the cost of manufacturing. That pressure didn't exist back in 2017. How did nobody see this? But even then, I don't even think the increase in price is due to material costs. I think it's motivated by greed and profits that they failed to capture. The Switch's outdated hardware meant that they missed out on some of the biggest releases over the past few years. Baldur's Gate, Elden Ring, Black Myth Wukong, Marvel Rivals, Monster Hunter World, and Monster Hunter Wilds. The list goes on. While Nintendo's exclusives sell incredibly well, it still stings when you're not taking that 30% cut from some of the biggest third-party launches year over year. Additionally, I think that these price hikes are a form of insurance. I think that they also don't want a lot of these AAA games because the AAA industry has been in free fall over the past couple of years. We've seen way too many games fail and studios outright embarrass themselves. Nintendo doesn't want those games. They don't even want them on their console. This isn't speculation. We've already heard reports that Nintendo is withholding Switch 2 dev kits from so-called chaotic publishers and studios. So what do you do if you're Nintendo? How do you overcome this issue? You squeeze harder on the existing loyal, price-resilient player base that you've cultivated. Nintendo isn't up to gamble. They're protecting their hardware and their margins. They want consistency, not volatility. And if that means charging more for the games that they make, that's exactly what they're going to do. I don't like that Nintendo, a company that fails to innovate, that repackages the same games over and over again, that profits more than anyone else, is now trying to justify a $80 price tag for digital games. This isn't about inflation. This isn't about value. It's about greed, plain and simple. Calculated, deliberate, opportunistic greed. And the only reason they're doing this is because they know they can get away with it. This is the same company that has mastered the art of selling you the same thing twice, sometimes 3 times in some cases. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, well, that's a Wii U game from 2014, still $60 a decade later. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, well, you know it's new because we put new in the title. How would you know otherwise? We would hate for you to find out that game came out 13 years ago. Can't wait for everybody to go and buy Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Enhanced. Their entire business is built around nostalgia farming and resale loops, and now they want to charge you just for the privilege. Some of the biggest games on the Switch were Nintendo games, and that's exactly what you want to see. You want your exclusives to do well. That's what brings people to your console in the first place, and you also get to capture all of that revenue that's made. But at the same time, you're going to start to feel the burn from the rest of the industry being on fire and from you missing out on some of the most explosive launches that we've seen in recent years with a lot of the games that we've seen come out even just in the last 2 years, to be honest with you. And you need more than your exclusives to remain successful. And Nintendo knows that. There's money that they've been missing out on, and they want that money. So they're looking around the industry and saying, well, your games aren't selling. Well, I guess we'll just increase the price of ours to be able to make up for it. That's exactly what they're going to do. The thing is, they can get away with it. I can sit here and talk shit. Knock something over. I can sit here and talk shit all I want, but it doesn't really matter because these Nintendo fans are going to buy these games. They're already defending the prices. But guys, games should be like $150 bajillion if you adjust for inflation. I mean, if you think about it, we've been lucky to only spend $70. It's actually pretty generous now that you think about it. Good Lord. Hi-ho, silver, pole riders away. Corporate sycophants. You guys disgust me. This doesn't just affect you, it affects everybody else. Do what you want in your ecosystem, but leave me and mine alone. Sadly enough, that's not how this works in this situation. But I also get it at the same time because I understand how Nintendo has built that kind of audience in the first place, because Nintendo, unlike a lot of other publishers, doesn't really care about what the games look like, to a fault in some cases, but they care about how the game plays. Is the game fun? And because of that, they buy themselves a lot of loyalty from their fan base. Loyalty that's been lost across this entire industry. I've talked about it, not even know how many videos right now, but come on, man. It's the biggest issue that we've seen. A lot of these companies are not paying attention to how fun their games are, and because of that, they're losing the people that would be playing their games. Instead, they're letting their developers make platforms for modern politics than fun video games. This is the end result of that. I'm not stupid. I know people are going to buy these games. I've seen people already start to call for a boycott. Oh, we can't buy this. Guys, you are not going to unify the gaming audience against Nintendo. It's just not going to happen. We're talking about a group of players that, one, spends against their best interests. I mean, we're talking about people that buy microtransactions, spend money on gacha games, and buy yearly Call of Duties, even though the game pisses them off every single time. I'm one of them, by the way. But we're also talking about a group of people that aren't even in on the conversation to begin with. The people that are watching videos like this are a fraction of the audience. They're just not going to hear any of this stuff. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen naturally because people just genuinely can't afford it. Which brings me to the idea that I don't think anybody else in this industry, outside of maybe a couple of outliers, are going to be able to get away with this pricing. There are way too many people that are downplaying how serious of an issue these price increases are, and Nintendo is one of the only companies that can afford to do this. They have been training their customers to be good little soldiers for years now. Go and look at their store. They have a content-starved audience that has missed out on some of the biggest third-party releases, and the vast majority of their first-party titles, Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, Smash Ultimate, never drop in price because they don't have to. They have conditioned their fan base to just accept it. But not every company has that kind of brand power or that customer loyalty. And when the rest of the industry tries to follow suit, the repercussions are going to be catastrophic. But for whatever reason, people on the internet just don't want to see the light of day when it comes to the reality of what these price increases are going to do to the market. I can't even tell you guys how many developers, analysts, journalists, and yes, even players have been talking down to customers, minimizing the impact of the price increase while pointing out inflation. All the while, these are the same people that have been talking about layoffs, job scarcity, job security, rising immigration, tariffs, and trade increasing prices, not realizing that's exactly why people are complaining about the price in the first place. Nobody gives a shit about inflation. They don't care about how much $80 was 20 years ago. They are worried about how far their paycheck will go today. And right now, their paychecks aren't going very far. I am so sick of this conversation. We are watching millions of people around the world losing buying power by the day. And their best response for the industry and the rest of these sycophants is to tell people to shut up and pay more. No wonder people are becoming more radicalized by the day when it feels like you're yelling at a wall. My God, you guys should see some of the mind-numbing comments I have been subjected to by pseudo-intellectuals on Twitter. LD, you should use this as an opportunity to educate your audience on economic policy. Nobody cares about facts. Shouldn't facts inform opinions and views? No, nobody cares. How has point of sale become an esoteric concept? People staring at data sheets and inflation calculators rather than thinking about the way a customer feels when they walk up to a cash register or they hover over the purchase button while thinking about how much that $80 is in groceries or gas. Anyone who works in sales knows this simple truth. The second a customer starts to think too much, they are gone. Games are no longer an impulse buy at $80. They are a maybe later that suddenly turns into a desire that cools off. They then forget. And then even if they do come back, that cycle is likely to start over again. What none of these people, and especially these publishers, are thinking about right now is raising prices introduces friction. That friction is deadly in a marketplace overflowing with choice. It's going to be the difference between I'll buy it now or I'll wait for a sale. And that could be the difference between a smash hit or a forgotten launch. Especially when that game is $80 and it's competing with dozens of other titles that are all fighting for the same slice of your paycheck. And while I've seen people try to defend the price bump with it's only $10 more, it's cheaper than a meal at McDonald's, those are painfully short-sighted takes. I know this is a crazy concept, but not everybody is from middle-class America. Not everybody lives in a stable economy with extra cash to burn. Not everybody can afford to treat every new release like it's a throwaway weekend purchase. In Canada, these games are already over $110. In Australia, they're over $120. And when you start looking at other countries like Brazil, then things get even more absurd. An $80 game there translates to $440. The average income there is like $3,200 a month. So one game is 13% of one person's entire monthly earnings. For somebody that's on minimum wage, it's closer to 31%. That's 1/3 of somebody's income for a single video game. And while many of these platforms do offer regional pricing, many of these companies, these publishers and studios, don't ever take advantage of it, especially not for physical games where manufacturers and retailers can just control the markup. So for players in these low-income countries, video games are quickly becoming a luxury product, something that you have to save up for, like a new phone, not something that you're going to buy casually. Millions of players around the world are being priced out of the hobby entirely, unless they're willing to become goldfish for whales in a free-to-play casino, nickel and dimed inside of mobile games that exploit their time, their data, or their desperation. Otherwise, these guys are just going to turn to piracy if they haven't already. Now, I mentioned this in a video last year, but most people don't pirate just for the hell of it. They pirate because it's the most convenient and affordable option that's left to them. If games are reasonably priced, regionally adjusted, and easy to access, most people are going to be happy to support it. But the minute that you make it unaffordable, inconvenient, or inaccessible, people are going to find another way. They always do. Gaming is a passionate hobby. People care. They are invested. They love these games. And if publishers keep pricing them out, the message becomes clear. You're not welcome here unless you pay top dollar. And when you push people hard enough, far enough, they're going to push back. They'll jailbreak, they'll torrent, they'll emulate, they'll do anything they can to play the games they love. The irony is these companies are going to spend millions of dollars fighting piracy while ignoring the real cause, alienating their own audience. Now, I've taken a lot of time to think about this, but I think the biggest consequence of these price increases is going to be how much it's going to polarize the difference between success and failure. Think about it. If you're asking $80 for a game, you are creating sky-high expectations. You are saying that this game is premium. It is worth it. And if that game's trailers, reviews, experience, or reception do not deliver, the backlash and failure is going to be all the more brutal. This is going to completely fold the AAA industry, especially if these studios and publishers are not taking the time to think about the consequences of increasing prices on some of these low-effort AAA releases that we've seen over the past couple of years. These publishers love to talk about recouping investments, but what they don't realize is raising prices creates psychological resistance. At $60, people might gamble. At $80, they expect a masterpiece. And most of these games aren't delivering that. I mean, look at Dragon Age the Veilguard. It missed its sales target by half, just 1.5 million players. And that's at the current price point of $70. How much worse is that going to be at $80? What about Star Wars Outlaws, Redfall, Forspoken, Assassin's Creed Shadows, even good games like Final Fantasy XVI and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, well-received, polished, high-quality games, still underperformed. Imagine how much worse that gets when that price tag climbs even higher. Fewer impulse buys, more hesitation, fewer people willing to take a risk on something, and a lot of other people just priced out of it entirely. And it's not just the brand new AAA releases. I think a lot of people don't realize that this kind of price inflation will trickle down. Games that used to be 30 will get bumped up to 40, 40 becomes 50, 50 becomes 60, and before you know it, everything is overpriced, and every release is going to carry that much more risk. When games cost more, customers buy fewer, and when there's fewer customers that are buying, every failed launch is going to hurt even more. Look, I think a great game can still sell well at $80, but those are going to be rare. How many successful releases have we actually seen in AAA? 4 or maybe 5 out of a dozen releases every year? Most publishers aren't From Software or CD Projekt Red. They're not Larian Studios. The average AAA game is just not good enough to demand that kind of price tag. Not even close. And I'm hoping that these publishers are taking the time to realize that if a player drops $80 on a hit like Elden Ring, they're going to be a lot less likely to buy your mediocre action RPG 2 weeks later. Their budget's gone, their time is gone, you missed your shot. We literally just saw this happen with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Avowed. Ultimately, the number of games that people buy each year is going to shrink. The higher the price, the more selective people are going to become. That's not theory, that's economics. Disposable income only stretches so far, and with more games releasing every single year, year over year, that's going to be a death sentence for anything that isn't exceptional. You're not just raising prices, you're raising expectations and risk. And most games, especially most AAA games, are not going to be able to meet the numbers that they need. But I don't want to be all doom and gloom, because I do think that there's going to be a silver lining in all of this, a glimmer of hope, if you will, because there are smart studios that are out there, indies, mid-sized independents, and AA disruptors, and these guys are going to capitalize on this shift, because while AAA publishers are going to panic and uniformly fall in line before the $80 price point, these independents won't. They can't afford to, and they don't need to. Instead, what we're going to see is something that this industry desperately needs, a return to competitive pricing based on value, not marketing budgets, not investor pressure, not a one-size-fits-all price tag that treats every game like it's delivering the exact same experience, just developers looking at their game and saying, what is this actually worth? I've already sunk 40 hours into Schedule 1. That game cost me $20. Repo is topping the Steam charts right now, and it's $10. This month, Expedition 33 is going to launch. That has AAA fanfare, it has the visuals, the big-name voice actors, and they're selling it for 10% off at pre-sale, $44.99. I mean, if you think about it, the 3 biggest AAA releases that we've seen over the past few years, Black Myth Wukong, Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring, they all shipped at $60 on Steam. These aren't just cheap games, they're smart games, well-priced, well-scoped, and undercutting the entire field. They're winning not just because they're good, but because they're fair. And in a world where the price of gaming is starting to feel more and more exploitative, fairness is going to be a competitive edge. The industry is shifting, and is shifting fast. Players are more informed, more cautious, and more willing to support studios that respect their time and their wallets. Great pricing is no longer about affordability, it's about trust. That trust is becoming a kind of currency. So while AAA publishers are going to push for higher prices to cover their bloated budgets and failing bets, the smaller studios are going to be building loyalty by offering us more for less. Not because they have to, but because they know how it works. And over time, I think we're going to start to see more developers, big and small, price their games not based on industry trends, but based on experience. Not every game is worth $80. Some are worth $40, some are worth $20, and some are worth far more than what they actually charge. I think we're entering into a new era, an era in which the price is no longer dictated by the platform holders or the publishing giants, but by the developers willing to back their product with a number that actually makes sense. The future of gaming isn't about who makes the best game, it's about who dares to price it honestly. I look at a game like Expedition 33 and I see how they're using an introductory price. Basically, if you're buying the game before its launch or within the first week of its launch, you get 10% off or something like that. And I think that's the future. They are a studio that have put a lot of effort and a lot of time, a lot of money. They get big big time voice actors and stuff like that in their game. This is their first game. They recognize that they are unproven, that people don't know them, and they have to do something to separate themselves from the herd. That buys a lot of goodwill. Extending that olive branch buys a lot of goodwill from the fans. And look, I'm talking about them in a video right now. That's free promotion that they got just because of a decision that they made that the players view as fair. People talk about those things. That becomes a word of mouth marketing for you. And I think a lot of the industry has lost sight of that you have to maintain that relationship and understand that relationship with the customer, because this isn't like any other type of entertainment industry. This isn't like any other type of product industry. There's a intimate relationship between the players and the developers and these games that just doesn't really exist anywhere else. And while not everybody is in on these conversations, a very loud and very influential part of that fan base, of these customer bases, they are in on these conversations. And you have to pay attention to that. You have to be mindful of that. You know, we're going to see a lot of games fail that should have succeeded. And we're going to see games that fail really bad, to the point they close down studios, which we've already seen, which tells me it's going to be even worse than it's ever been before. Studios that normally wouldn't have gotten shut down are going to get shut down, specifically because these companies will just genuinely not be able to afford it. I do not think that these publishers are going to take the time to think about what a price increase will look like on underperforming titles. I think that they're going to be completely fixated on what it's going to look like for well-performing titles or decently performing titles, not realizing that a price increase is likely going to pull more units out of the shelves than, or it's going to leave more units on the shelves than pull them off of the shelves. People just aren't going to, like, you cannot think that you're going to sell the same amount of units by increasing the price. It's just not going to happen. And keep in mind, the vast majority of releases that we see over the years we see more Avoweds than we do Kingdom Comes. We see more Dragon Age the Veilguards than we do Baldur's Gate 3s. So what do you think the effect is going to be? People are just not going to buy those games. Especially if like 2 games is going to be like $200. That's almost a half a console. You're out of your mind. I knew a price increase was coming, but I didn't think that they would do it at a time that I believe player trust within this industry is at its lowest it's ever been. Player satisfaction is at the lowest it's ever been. These players are sick and tired of the bloated games, the over monetization. They're sick of the slop that's being fed to them at high prices. They don't want to have anything to do with it. What do they think the end result of this is going to be? Do they actually think that the game that sold for 10 million units is going to now make $800 million? Because what I think is going to happen is the game that sold for 10 million units is now going to sell 8 million units, and now you're going to make $640 million. Best case scenario for them is that these games end up breaking even. That's the best thing that can happen to these guys. I don't think they understand that there's too many options in this market for people not to just go somewhere else. There's too many other games for us to play. There's going to be people that are going to be taking advantage of this situation. They've probably been waiting for these idiots to go and raise their prices because they know they can come in, undercut them, and make a stealing. Look at one guy, Tyler, makes Schedule 1. Dude's an overnight millionaire. Obviously, there's like a legal case that's going on with that, but I think they'll win, to be honest with you. It's based on something so stupid. There's definitely no infringement of patents or anything like that. Sorry, man, you don't have a license on how drugs are made. It's so stupid. But players are just going to go elsewhere. They're going to pick other games. They're going to find something else to play, and they're not going to play these games. They're not going to pay these prices. We already know they're not going to pay these prices. Otherwise, if they were, well, then Star Wars Outlaws would have succeeded. Well, then Concord would have stayed alive. Well, then Dragon Age the Veilguard would have met sales expectations. But these games didn't. Players aren't putting up with this kind of thing anymore. And the minute that you increase the price, you'll never see them again. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, join the Discord if you will. Come talk to me on Twitter. I would like to have some more high-minded individuals to talk to over there. Outside of that, my friends, catch me live over on Twitch. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next one.